I'm I'm passionate about justice. Actually, I'm tolerant of injustice. There's something in me everywhere. If someone is being mistreated or there's unfairness, and I've always been like that. Like I see those things. Why are you treating this one like this? It was one of those impossible dreams. Uzofika kanjani? Uzobhadala ngani? You know, like it was just an impossible dream. But again, it happened. I wanted it. I think when we talk about exclusion as Black people, men and women, it's easy to understand. We can all relate that there's this exclusion that is happening, and we need to be included, or we need to be given the same opportunities that others are given. So unfortunately, I think we are regressing. I mean, you look at prominent positions at the moment, and then tell me who's there.
Well, colleagues, welcome to the next episode of the LeadingSelf Podcast. My name is Guguletu Maqetuga. I'm your host. This podcast is a center, I believe, of excellence. This is where we celebrate leaders. This is where we talk subjects of leadership and also look at organizations, culture, BEE, our transformation legislation, and look at where we are as a nation and a society. Are we hitting the mark? Are we getting to where we wanted to be when some of these legislations were put in place 30 years ago? And today, we have probably one of the best person to deal with this subject, someone who has led in institutions such as the Black Management Forum, but she's also is an entrepreneur. She's an academic. She has lectured. And let's welcome none other than Dr. Sibongile Vilakazi. Doc, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for gracing us. And I think because where we are as a country, it becomes very important to have these subjects. I always say that because I work in the environment of coaching and I work with a lot of professionals, and some of the issues that, they face, whether in corporate, whether in their private lives, always often centers around issues of confidence in themselves and confidence in what they do. And sometimes those factors are influenced by the climate in which they operate in. Now, your story, for those who know you, is very popular. You have had run-ins with institutions, especially your former employer, Vets University, where you actually challenged it legally, your dismissal based on allegations of moonlighting. Let's start there. What happened there?
Well, I want people to read the book, so I won't tell them what's already in the book. And I think it's an interesting story because it's a lived experience. As you say, you operate in spaces where you come across professionals and they deal with real issues. There's the things that we desire, especially as a country. You mentioned that one of the topics you look at as the show, things like BEE. It's a policy. You desire certain outcomes, and we create policies to ensure that those outcomes are realized. But sometimes because we create these policies and ideas and concepts out of what we believe should happen. It's all our desires. They are sometimes not influenced by realities and what really happens, because we don't know what we don't know. So we have to go through experiences to then come back and say, oh wow, that policy, it needs review here and there, because now that we've experienced it, this is what we are finding on the ground in terms of experience. So, and a lot of the policies that we've designed as a country to move ourselves as a country forward were based on just that goodwill, people looking towards the future and what makes sense. And then voila, we find ourselves benefiting from those policies. So, for instance, being a Black female in South Africa at the moment means that there are certain privileges that you're supposed to have in the effort to redress the past. So you come in, you if there's a position promotion or whatever, you will most likely take first preference if you are qualified, meet the criteria for the job and all of that. So from the outside, someone may think that you have it easy, and you have all these opportunities. But in terms of experience, that people resist in different ways. They may comply, but do other things that jeopardizes the ideal or what we are trying to achieve. And sometimes you can't even prove it, that you have blocked me. If you come out and say, there's these opportunities, but I'm not accessing them, I'm being blocked. Some people will look at you and say, how? Because the policy says you are the one that should benefit. So these are the things that are now we are uncovering as the generation of the people who are going through the desired policies that we put in place as a country. And my story at Vets, it's one of those that you find yourself with these privileges, or at least from the outside. And then you find yourself out and you're like, how do you get out? What just happened? So that's what my story it's about that. Those nuances that if left untold, they may create a deceptive picture.
Yeah, that things are normal, okay. Things are okay.
Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah. And I get your point that, people need to buy the book. It's called Put Her in Her Place. And you talk about your experience, how certain sort of like rules are made for certain individuals. And there's no consistency in the application of rules. And I suppose that was your experience, with your relationship, where you were accused of moonlighting when you got a different contract in addition to the one that you had with the institution. Tell us. I mean, I know you don't want to go into detail regarding that, because obviously get the book and read it. But for you, what were the key signs that showed you that things were not okay here? What were the things that sort of like said to you, something is not kosher, something is not right?
I must be honest with you, I was caught completely off guard. I was wearing these rose-tinted glasses, looking at the world of that environment with love and nothing else. I was coming from corporate SA, and I understood politics of corporate. Why do people fight? It's usually, and when I was in corporate, I thought they were silly. I just felt like we spend a lot of time fighting over nothing when you could be making an impact out there, because people fight to be seen that I led the project. This was my idea, and we spend a lot of time wasting time. So when I started experiencing academia, I felt that, oh wow, here's a space where you actually spend most of your time doing the things that mean so much to you. Writing, was in my case, impacting society, thought leadership, teaching minds. You have an impact. So your whole life is all about impacting someone else, next generation. Unlike selling a product that sometimes it doesn't work, but because there's a sales target, you have to push these sales. You have to come up with all these different ideas, and then you fight over nothing. Then there's bonus times, and people fight over which team must get the biggest bonus. And I thought those were silly fights, but I understood them, and I knew how to survive them. I knew how to fight them. As much as I thought they were silly, they made sense. Then here I come in this environment where your success is determined purely by everything that you do, not someone else. Because you have an academic workload that is you negotiate with your line manager or the academic director. You know how many papers you're going to be delivering this year. if you don't meet those papers, it simply means you can't be promoted. It's on you. Whatever it is, you must publish, you must speak at conferences, you must teach, you must. So it's designed, it's set, and it's all within your powers. So you can decide how fast you get this promoted to senior levels based on how many papers
you
are
present and
Yes.
publish. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the recognition that you should get. So you would think that because it's an environment like that where it's all up to you, the politics will be minimal, or they will be structured, or I don't know, predictable. But I found that actually politics are everywhere.
Yeah.
But in this environment, because I didn't understand them, quickly. Because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And firstly, because the environment, I mean, you can walk in there now, you will find that there's most likely no one in their offices. So it's empty. So you hardly interact with your colleagues. When you are in your office, you are in your office doing your own thing. Someone else is in their office doing their own thing. You will most likely not see each other. Unless then obviously there's a meeting, the staff meeting, then you see people, or there's an activity, then you will see other. But on a normal day, you will not hardly see anyone.
Yeah.
So that deceives you into thinking that this is my space, and I'm not being watched. And also, I mean, you will see in the book the support that you get, that at least at that time I got, was very minimal. So you expected to run with things on your own. So I did not see it coming. And then when my line manager calls me and says, let's meet, and I go, and then he presents to me this contract. And
and for those listening, it's a contract that you got from a different company.
Yes.
Yeah. In addition, that you
Yes.
signed in addition to the work that you were doing
Yeah.
at the university. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he says, where is this coming from? Like, what is this about? So I'm also like, where did you get it? Because, and he says, no, I found it on my pigeonhole. And even then, I didn't see it as, oh, this is danger. I just saw it as, I must just explain myself. So I explain myself, this is what's going on. And then he's like, oh, okay, be mindful. This space, you may think that, people are sitting in their offices, they're doing whatever that they're doing that we don't know of. But they will use this against you.
Wow.
Go and fix it.
Yeah.
So,
And we will get to some of those things, because I also want us to couch it around the experiences of many of many professionals.
Yeah.
In corporate, but also mainly in our context in South Africa, many black professionals in that space. But let's take it back a bit. So who is Sibongile? I mean, like, a young academic, where do you come from? Who is this lady?
Well, I'm from Pichiti.
Mkondo.
I'm glad you know Pichiti, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has changed its name now. It's called Mkondo.
Yeah.
So that's where I was born. And I was one of those kids, if you may, who never really felt that I belonged there. The place was just, well, I guess it was small for me, but I didn't know that was the feeling, because very little used to happen repetitive. From a profession perspective, you were either a teacher or a nurse, like the traditional professions. So, and I always felt out of place. I wanted to leave repetitive, because the only way you be successful anyways was leaving. That success.
Or you either go to Durban in that, or you go to come to Joburg.
Yeah. So, but leaving the place was like the first hurdle towards success for you. So so I came from there, and my biggest dream when democracy was about to happen. Now I think I was still very young. I think I was 12 or even younger. At that time when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, and the preparations towards democracy, everything that happened around that. And and the campaigning. I remember he came to PGT to campaign, and we were also excited to see this huge figure called Nelson Mandela. And they made these promises. I mean, I was there at the stadium, and one of the things he said was that a black child will now, from now on, be able to go to a white school.
Okay.
And the government will take care of that. You know, they were promising housing, they were promising all of these things. But for me, what stood out for me was that I could go to a white school.
Okay.
And I believed him. And I went home, I told my mom, Mama, I'm going to a white school. Like, for me, that was, you know, Mandela has said it and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom like looking at me thinking, oh, well, shame.
This child.
Shame, but it did happen. It's something that I really wanted, and the time came and I moved, I left Peter Tiff. But that was my...
Wow. And your after that, your journey just takes off. I mean, you potentially received your PhD at quite a young age.
Yeah.
What was the driver behind that? I mean,
yeah. So I always wanted to be a doctor. Well, firstly, not doctor. I wanted to be someone. So when I was in Pichutif, in those areas where nothing was happening, people were most of the time drunk around me, you know, in the neighborhoods. That's what we saw.
Yeah.
I just wanted, there was something in me that I wanted to be someone. I wanted to be influential. And in my earliest memory of what I wanted to do for a job, I wanted to be a radio presenter.
Okay.
And it's only later that I realized that, actually I wanted influence. I wanted a platform to influence people. So PhD, then when I was the first one to go to university again. At that time when I decided that I want to go to university, it was one of those impossible dreams. You know, like it was just an impossible dream. But again, it happened because I wanted it. Then I went to university, and then I was clear I wanted to be a doctor, but not medical doctor, but I wanted to have a PhD. By the age of 30, I even had...
Oh, wow.
Well, it didn't happen by the age of 30, but at least soon after that. So, yeah, so I was quite clear on those things, and I worked well.
And what did it mean, especially, I'm imagining, coming from Piet Retief, MCON, and the families that we all come from. You, young as you were, you get a degree, you move on to get your PhD. What did that mean for you, and what did it mean to the family as well?
Yeah. Not just the family. I think for Black people in general, because PhDs, well, now we're starting to see more and more people achieving them. But they were not always something that people went for. So it was a big deal. Not just for my family. For my family, getting a degree was a big deal because I was the first one in the history in the family. Wow. So that was the big deal. And then the second one becomes, your mom's going into Achilles, you know? It becomes easy. It's something she does. And then the next you've got a master's. It's like, well, you know, this is Sibongile. But a PhD, so that's like now we've taken it to the next level, not just for the family, for the town where I come from, PGT, but also just for the nation, for Black people in general, that you have decided to take things to that level.
To that level. So, I mean, your story and your journey is quite interesting because you balance both the professional corporate life with the academic life. So it seems like you have interests in both worlds. Tell us about that. So I know that at some point when you were doing I don't know whether you were doing your PhD at the time, but you had Alexander Forbes, and you were also not only, you know, doing the work of the business, but you're also doing research within the organization. So are you more academic orientated in terms of your private sector work?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely I mean, you'll see even in the book, I talk about that story that academia chose me, unfortunately. I didn't choose that space. I don't think anyone in their right mind would, because it's a labor of love. Like, there's no money.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. Yeah. So you wouldn't choose that. So I'm more inclined towards deep thinking. Like, I look at issues, I don't just see what normally people, and that was one of the things that frustrated me in corporate life, because it's driven by, you need to make the sale, you need to deliver the projects to the client, and sometimes we take shortcuts, and those are the things that frustrate me, but we're not thinking about this deeply. And because I came from qualitative research and most of the things that I did, then that love for deep thinking was catered for in that way, that when someone tells you, when you are watching a focus group, for instance, and people are talking, you don't just listen to what they're telling you. You listen to how they are saying it, and their body language when they're saying it. And that's the story. It's not, because it's easy for people to tell you what sounds right, what they have the words for, and what they don't have the words, then they communicate in other ways. The body language will tell you that, oh, okay, this is what they mean. And then sometimes you just stop the camera and the tape and allow people to talk, and then voila, they tell you the real story. So I've always been that person that's looking for the deeper meaning, the deeper explanation, what's going on, what's really going on. So that makes me then a natural academic, because that's what academia is about. It's about asking the deeper questions, not just for solutions for today, but that will then help the future. That it makes it easier for people when there's a framework already, that if you want to walk towards certain city from here, this is the direction. And that's what academia is about. It lays that foundation for me. But at the same time, I'm practical.
Okay.
So the thinking for the sake of thinking also frustrates me. Because my career started at the Human Sciences Research Council.
Okay.
And one of the things that made me want to move towards corporate, because Human Sciences Research Council was an academic institution.
Yeah.
The projects take long because it's a deep thinking. They must influence policy. So the research that we would have done, it must be thorough. It must be this. And then you end up spending the whole year just trying to finish one project. And that also frustrates me, that we have to find a middle ground. Things must work. We must find solutions for people to live today while we're leaving footsteps for the future at the same time.
Wow. Very interesting. And I suppose marrying the two brings out potentially a best professional, because who has depth in research, yet very pragmatic and practical, responding to market forces and market issues.
Yeah.
You also then take up a posture around female empowerment. It becomes a very big issue for you. Was that also in terms of your early days in private sector, looking at the demographics in organizations, and you said, where are the women? Was that the issue that drove you to talk more about female empowerment or women empowerment?
That's an interesting one also, because that's another one that found me. I'm passionate about justice. Actually, I'm tolerant of injustice. There's something in me everywhere. If someone is being mistreated or there's unfairness, and I've always been like that. Like, I see those things. Why are you treating this one like this? Like, I want people to develop equally. I want people to advance. I've always been like that. Women issues, I've never related to women issues until I occupied leadership positions. People will talk about them, and I would be in spaces where we talk about them, but I never really felt it. The reason being, I come from a family where the roles were reversed.
Okay.
My mom was the one working. My dad was unemployed, and he took care of us. My dad was the one that loved us. Like, we ran to him for everyday nurturing. And then my mom was the one that we ran to for need these shoes, I need that.
Yes.
So the roles were reversed. And my mom was a disciplinarian. When she's coming back from work and the bus stops, we all running around fix what we may have done wrong. And then my dad would be the one that hugs us. So I've always felt like human. I didn't realize that woman and a man, and I walked into rooms and I was just a person. The only thing that I was always sensitive to was race. I always felt black.
Okay.
But I never really felt woman.
Okay.
Because of that. I mean, I saw my mom was a leader in the house. So it was different until I occupied leadership roles in male-dominated spaces. Then I realized, no, man, this is real. Like, you are trying to move forward, but there's a force that is bringing you back. And that force it's like a woman must and a man must. We have these roles that are defined.
Very defined and structured. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
part of social engineering.
Yes.
As it were, yeah.
Yeah. So when you are a woman now occupying a role that typically is a male associated, and you are just being yourself, leading the way you normally lead, you realize that there are actually expectations that are still there. They're invisible, but they're there. And then you watch women trying to progress. You watch the statistics. You watch everything. You realize that, no, this is an injustice. And where there's an injustice, you will always find Sibongile. So, the reason then I talk a lot about those issues, it's because it's an injustice that, yeah.
I'm interested, and I'm like fascinated by that dynamic of you seeing yourself as Sibongile, seeing yourself as a force, whatever spaces you went into, but never naturally went into I'm a woman, Sibongile. I'm interested in that because it seemingly for me is like, is it potentially one of the reasons why you rose up so quickly in spaces that you went to, because you saw opportunity and you went into it?
Yeah, those mental barriers are real. They do say that you become what you believe. So if you believe that indoda must, umfazi must, so obviously you behave in line with that. So when you don't have those, you move as just a human being, seeing opportunities and taking them on, and that's it. I can do this, and therefore let me do it. So there's no voices that says, but you're a woman. Women don't do this. A woman must sit like this. You don't have those voices in your head. So you just do things. And yeah, and I remember when I was in Nedbank, when I look back now, I realized I was always in the company of men, like outside, informal conversations. I was always like, find it easy. And yeah, and it's an interesting thing because the power dynamics, there's woman or feminine power that when a woman also understands that power, they can use it and they advance using that feminine power and feminine energy. And I find that I struggle with that because I don't identify first and foremost as women. People say, oh, you're beautiful. You move into spaces. And then because you're a woman, it's like, oh, you are beautiful. And then some take offense, some leverage that because it's your power. There's different types of power. So they leverage that. And where some of us is like, this is just life,
So I am here.
Yeah.
I'm Sibongile. I am here. Let's do the work.
Yeah, let's get it done,
And I'm fascinated by that because you were joking earlier about how I googled you and as part of my preparation for our conversation, and when you were president of the Black, in fact, how did it come about? How did I was watching your interview, when you were inaugurated as the president of the Black Management Forum. You also came for 20-something odd years after Osis Nolita Fagode. How did that happen, and how did you feel about that responsibility that you were given at the time?
Yeah, no, BMF values and what it stands for and everything. Literally, it's me. So how I joined, I used to be involved in another party, and And it was Langa Mangele. He was at the time he was the chairperson of Gauteng province, BNF Gauteng. Who I invited him to this party because I used to be responsible for middle strata work and Oniga. So I was assigned a committee that was looking at economic growth and development for the middle strata. And I was looking for ideas and all of that. So I invited then the chairperson of BMF and Gauteng to come and give a talk there. And after the talk, and he asked me, but why are you not in the BMF? Why are you not active? I was a member, but I wasn't active.
I see.
And then it's like, but why are you not active? Because you should be here. This what you are doing is what BMF is doing, and you should be driving it in the BMF. So he invited me to be his in his committee as a research person there. So I came in like that. I started becoming involved and participating and like that. And we did amazing things together, research projects that we did together. Then it became natural that you should be then leading. You should be part of the leadership of the organization. So, and I was a member of Sentin branch, and it was due for elections for the chair. And I remember in that meeting, I was the only female in that the AGM of the branch. And yeah, I got elected as the chair. And then I started doing the work because it comes natural to me. The work that advances justice. It's just natural to me. My thesis was about affirmative action. So I understand these concepts deeper. I'm not just the president of the BMF, or I actually understand what should be happening and why some of the things that are supposed to be happening are not happening academically.
Yeah.
The deeper understanding of them. So for me, it was natural. So doing the work then as chairperson of Sentin blew up, membership grew, sponsorships grew, the stakeholders that were aligned, it grew. So it became, I remember as a chairperson of Sentin, there were already, rumblings that this one could be president.
Okay.
She could take it on. And then as an organization, there was that deep cry that why are women, because it's a very masculine organization.
Yeah.
It's majority.
And where are the sisters?
Yeah. Why are women not emerging in the organization? So there was that deep cry at the time. And then I moved to become the chairperson of the province. And again, it was the same thing. Like the province grew. So I think it was a no-brainer that you need to rise to the next level. And then obviously there were the things that happened at the time, the scandals that were happening, and it just solidified the idea that a woman or an all-woman presidency must emerge to be able to then clean up all of these things that have happened. Okay. So that's how it happened.
Wow. No. So, some of some of the things that you have sort of commented about as president was that issue, and going back to issues of women empowerment, was the issue of gender parity. Whether it's in terms of pay in the workplace, or also a consideration for roles. Do you think we where we are today, we are winning on that front?
Sadly, I think we are regressing. It's a really tough battle. This battle of leveling the playing field for in terms of gender. I think especially for Black women, because it's a triple struggle, as you always talk about that. Because I think when we talk about exclusion as Black people, men and women, it's easy to understand. We can all relate that there's this exclusion that is happening, and we need to be included, or we need to be given the same opportunities that others are given. It's easy. We can speak on par. But then the moment we come to the woman one, it becomes complex, because now, as men and women, Black men and Black women, now you also bring in the family dynamic, that as a spouse or as a wife, how am I supposed to relate to my husband? And there are cultural things that come into play. There are norms that come into play. also beliefs. There's a whole lot of things. It complicates this situation. And when we move forward, we also find ourselves moving backwards because of those much deeper cultural issues that shape behaviors without us even knowing that it's been shaped. So unfortunately, I think we are regressing.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at prominent positions at the moment, and then tell me who's there. You can count women, and even amongst those that you can count, there's a lot of stories that are disturbing that come out. Like, for instance, the recent one that had just broke my heart deeply. Yega Nombasa at Exaro. I mean, we're so excited when Nombasa was appointed CEO, first woman CEO in the history of the organization, in the mining space. It's a very masculine space. And she was doing well. Watching her, it gives permission to younger girls to also say, I also want
to be there,
grow and get to that position. And then, boom, she's been suspended. When was the CEO of any company ever been suspended for bullying? Not that it's right if males are bullying other CEO are bullying other people and all of that. Not that it's right, and then they don't get suspended. But if it doesn't happen to males, why would it happen to a woman?
Yeah, exactly. And
Bullying.
in fact, if you think about it, in most cases, male are said to be great leaders because they demonstrate toughness. Women are labeled when they, the whole concept around toxic femininity in leadership. To tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, because it's bias thinking. Because certain behaviors are associated. It's like what I was just saying now, that when it's a male to female, it gets complicated because there's cultural nuances that at the same time you must observe.
Yeah.
And the cultural nuance is that a woman cannot just come and speak on behalf of the family. The male, even if it's a child, if your husband has passed on and you are a mother left with your children, rather your child speaks on behalf of the family than you as a mother, simply because you are a female. So those cultural dynamics start coming in. And now when you are expected to lead an organization, there are characteristics that you must assume as a leader. And if those characteristics are associated typically with men, then you will be interpreted in all sorts of manners that women leaders tend to be interpreted.
Yeah.
In this case, she's a bully. And therefore she must be investigated for bullying. When has that ever happened?
Is it gender expectations in terms of, like you say, we expect you to behave like this because you are a woman. We expect you to behave that way because you are a man. Now, the whole pressure of trying to fit into those expectations becomes now the responsibility of the leader. That, I must be careful that I don't offend this wing or offend that wing. In essence, then there is no genuineness, there is no authenticity in the approach. And do you think that society frames leadership in that way?
Yeah, unfortunately. And when we say we want women to occupy positions of power, we are not just saying because you are the face. So we want a face of women to occupy positions of power. We are saying we want qualities, feminine qualities, to occupy positions of power. Why? Because there are observable differences in men and women that need to balance each other. The reason there's male energy and there's female energy is for balance. So when one is more than the other, you start finding all sorts of problems in society because you have one energy dominating. And one may argue that we find ourselves where we are right now as a people because masculine energy has been dominating for so long. So when we say we need women leaders, it's not just women for being a female. It's women for the qualities of being a woman. So a woman must be allowed to lead like a woman. And we say women are nurturing. Yes, it's generalizing that all people, human beings are complex, and everybody brings qualities of their own to the table. and people must be allowed to express those qualities of their own. But we want women to lead so that women energy can influence us as a society. We can have more empathy because those are type of energies that in the main women bring.
It's a funny dynamic, because if you think about it, our earliest memories growing up, the grandmother, the matriarch, was a very strong presence in our lives, in terms of guiding, in terms of providing direction, and when you look at how then from then on how society is then structured, it's a complete opposite of that. And I think I appreciate the point you're making to say there's an energy that comes with female leadership. And that energy, at times, when you look at the egocentrism that pertains in most institutions, is the absence of that nurturing, is the absence of that. How do we get it right?
Yeah, it's gonna take time. Because that's one of the things I'm accepting. I think as I getting older, I'm appreciating time. You know, that there are things that only time can deal with. Our job is to bring ourselves and the knowledge that we may have gained to the table, and then let time make the shifts. So these things, I mean, you see, we go backwards, come closer, we go. I mean, for instance, what's her name? Nkosazana Dlamini. So, I mean, she came so close to being
very close,
to being the president of this country. And now she's not out of the pitch, and you look who else like are we looking at who can come as close? It's gonna take some time. You can see it's probably gonna take 2 more presidencies before we have a woman president. We've regressed. But while we've regressed, we also came close. She came close. So we need to be learning from that. What is it that got her to come so close, and then you know, so that the next one we don't have to repeat the mistakes that she probably would have made, so that she can come closer.
You raise a very important subject in your book about, or in fact, even in your own conversations about the whole issue of self-limiting beliefs. That sometimes you have situations where women in particular would say would not want to earn more than a man because of what that may represent, you know, in terms of power dynamics, I suppose, in the house or in the room. Tell us more about that.
Again, it comes back to those social norms, those dynamics that are cultural. I don't think it's a coincidence that when you go to any university or any institutions of higher learning, it's mostly women who graduate. Just check all the graduations and see who are the people graduating. It's mostly women who are graduating. The number of people who enter the workplace, check who are the people who are entering at the lower levels. It tends to be more women and then men. And then we get to middle management. Again, more men and more women and then men. Then you can move to senior. Then suddenly
it changes again.
Suddenly it's now men moving forward and then women are remaining at middle management. You ask yourself why. You look at the age patterns at that level. It's the ages where people are starting families. So women are having children, they're getting married, and then the norms start kicking in. That now your husband must take care of you. He's the provider. So you must allow yourself to, you know, just keep yourself there. And it's unconscious. It's behaviors that influence us that we are not even aware that we are being influenced by these norms. That suddenly you can't be as unless you have a man that embraces your ambition as a woman. You will naturally adjust yourself to allow the men to go ahead while you remain
behind.
Yeah.
You also talk about, you know, a subject that for me, you know, I think it's relatable because we see it I suppose we experience it from time to time, and it's not even gender specifics. It's the issue of jealousy, especially amongst black professionals and black people. Other people frame it as the pull him down syndrome. When someone close, and others call it, when someone rise, they kick the ladder down, and no one follows them. What are your thoughts on that, in particular amongst us as black professionals?
Yeah, it's a very sad reality, because I think all of us have been victims of how dangerous those emotions can be, because they are emotions in the end. And emotions are never wrong. It's how we respond to the emotion that then becomes wrong. Emotions are usually there to trigger us. Jealousy, it's simply telling you that you could be more. When you see somebody being more, it's telling you that actually you can also be there. So what do you need to be doing to get yourself there? But because we don't understand them, we don't understand these emotions, we use them badly. It becomes, you can't get, if I'm not there, then I need to pull you down with me, come and be at my level. And it's sad, because we do need to learn how to manage these emotions. Otherwise, we've got a very big
Is it
ahead of us.
So I've been dancing with the subject of Ubuntu or Ubuntuism as a philosophy, and whether those things have just become concepts that are there out there, or are they guiding principles about how I treat you as a person, how I see you, how I actually celebrate your success? Is it something that is lost? Was it ever there amongst black communities, or is it something that we potentially just deceive ourselves because we just love history and we love creating these roads?
We
romanticize about our past, pre-colonial Africa. Everyone was hugging each other. Do you think is it a betrayal of where we want to go now, or is it something that we potentially have to accept that we are humans and we'll always treat each other this way?
No, it's very interesting. I have a friend, Spiso Falal. He owns Bus 94.
Yeah.
He always argues with me on these my ideas about helping black people to move forward. These things that mean so much to me, and he will come and crush them. Say there's no such a thing. He says if black people would have this natural love, Ubuntu, take care of each other, all of that, if it was ever there, then we wouldn't have Hulu. He says go to any community. Doesn't matter how far back you go, there was always someone doing bad things to somebody. So I don't know. So maybe it's possible that we do romanticize these things. But they were always there. That we look at societal structures. There was a king and the subjects. A king is the one that has all the benefits, the good things, the nice lives. And then the subjects live slightly different lifestyles than the king. But the king also understood that he had a duty towards his people. And he must make lives easier and better for his people. So I don't know where along the way we lost it. My earliest memories are centered around communities that take care. Like you can't allow somebody who is struggling in the streets, same street as you, to struggle alone. You share. If there's food, you share what you have with that person. Those are the memories of the lives of a black person where I come from. We took care of each other. But along the way, maybe the need to advance, and the influence of individualism that comes from Western values, along the way it has taken over. And our need to advance, suddenly it sees me and my family advancing, and it doesn't see the responsibility you have towards your community, because we've lost that responsibility you have towards your community, that your success is the success of your community. You get celebrated by your community when you do well because you represent them. When you leave and you go out into the world, you represent the people who have seen you growing up. So I don't know how we've now lost that and so focused on succeeding alone.
It becomes a very, and maybe the national dialogue that the president has proposed will help us unpack some of those things. You do a lot of consulting now. I mean, as including some of the lecturing that you do at institutions. Tell me about as part of your consulting, you talk about African values that have been ignored in the corporate sector that we need to revisit. What do you mean by that? You know, and especially in your consulting work, you really zero in on some of the values that you think are missing in corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's we spend a lot of as Black people, success for us is defined by the furthest away we move from ourselves. You know, because there's corporates are designed by certain cultures. It's Western culture that created this concept of corporating, getting people to come into one space, do the work, and churn in, be productive, make profits, and share the profits. And some of it doesn't get shared; it sits with the shareholders. So that concept is foreign to us, and the rules that apply to define success in those spaces, it's not our rules. It's not the way a typical Black person hates. For instance, you are expected to be visible. When you've done good work, you must talk about the work that you've done. Your bosses must know that you've done this, and you know that's typically a Black person does not. That's not our values. With our values as that you must be humble. You can't go out and talk about the good things that you are. Someone must talk about you on your behalf. But because those values are not, they won't take you forward. So if you want to be successful, you can't wait for the next person to sing your praises if they are not doing that. So you have to adopt those Western values and be the one. So
Self-promote.
Yeah. And we find nice ways now of making it okay. And for you now to have to learn those things, that you have to tell yourself consciously that I am not self-promoting. I am just, it's my brand. I'm promoting, we find nice words. At Oksala, in the end, we are moving further and further away from what it means to be a Black person. So when you have companies that are Black started, and I really, this is my prayer, constantly, that we move more in that direction as a country, and as a world, I guess, in enabling Black people to start breathe. There's something that happens when you start something, breathe it in, breathe energy into it, because then you breathe that energy that is, it's okay to be you, the way you come, the way your hair appears from your head, it's beautiful. It doesn't need to be done stuff for it to. So that's my focus. That trying to assist Black people to be okay with the things that come natural to you. That if it comes, because sometimes when it comes natural, we think it's wrong. That I must learn something else,
new, something different. And you find yourself displaced.
Yeah.
No, I think next time you and I sit together, we need to revisit the whole issue of spirituality as well. The spirituality that we bring to corporate.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a given that these spaces are just neutral.
No, they're not.
When you bring yourself, you bring the whole of yourself. But Doc, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights. Wishing you the best for your next. By the way, what is your next?
Well, my prayer is that God use me.
Yeah.
Take me where I need to go,
Yeah.
where I can have the most impact.
Yeah.
And I can be the conduit between this generation and the next generation, and just help them to find a world that is a little better than the ones that we have found.
Wow. Thank you so much.